All right. The Scappoose Planning Commission meeting Thursday, April 27, 2023, starting at 7 o'clock. So agenda start call to order. Roll call.
Monica Allers,
Shoemaker.
Scott Jensen.
Bill Blank.
Rita Bernhardt.
Okay. Approval of minutes. Did anybody have any comments on the minutes from December 8th?
I don't.
Nope.
Nope. Make a recommendation. We
Second.
present it.
Okay. Any
Second
further
that.
discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Citizen input. Uh, is there anybody that would like to speak today on something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Now we are on to item 5, new business, docket SDR 1-23. Brian Marsh has requested approval of an application for site development review to allow for the renovation and change of use of an existing building, as well as improvements to various site amenities. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing building to a gym and yoga studio. The site is located at 51581 Columbia River Highway, northwest of the Havlick Drive and Columbia River Highway intersection, on property described as Columbia County Assessor Map 3213 B01700. This is a limited land use decision. There is no verbal testimony allowed during the hearing because there's no required interpretation of or exercise of policy or legal judgment. Written comments have been accepted until Wednesday, April 26th. So we will open the hearing.
Statement.
Oh, yeah.
Got most
Sorry,
of it.
it's been a while.
It's been a while.
I know.
I'm calling this hearing to order to consider an application for site development review. Limited land use decisions do not take verbal public testimony because they do not require a public hearing or the interpretation or exercise of policy or legal judgment. Any written comments shall be included in the record. Only the staff, the applicant, and the planning commission will have an opportunity to speak. There shall be no audience demonstration or other conduct which would disrupt the hearing. Does any planning commission member wish to declare any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest regarding this matter?
I do.
Okay.
Only because I happened to be at the site. I was going over to Freddy's and I noticed the mural that was on the
Huh.
wall that was pointed out that I should look at. Mayor. So I did. And when I was there, I am a planning commissioner. To
Okay.
Anybody else?
No.
Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner's impartiality or legal capacity to participate in this matter? The order of the hearing will be the staff report, then the applicant's presentation, then a staff response. Thereafter, the hearing will be closed for consideration of the matter by the commission. The decision of the planning commission can be appealed to the city council. Right, staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you all for being here tonight and for taking the time to review the materials in advance of the meeting. We're going to follow a format that you're all pretty familiar with by this point. I'll begin by going over the observations of the staff report, which begin on the bottom of page 19 of the packets that you have. I'll then list the relevant approval criteria for this proposed development and let you know which pages correspond to those chapters. Lastly, I'll let you know staff's recommendation and our recommended conditions of approval. After that, we will pause in case there are any questions of staff before we get into the applicant's presentation. So starting with the staff report, beginning on page 19. Subject site. The subject site consists of an approximately 1 acre parcel of land that is currently occupied by an existing building, which was previously the Sears Hometown Store and Glowing Putters, as well as a parking lot, and landscaping. Within the same parking lot, but on a separate legal lot, there is a tax preparation office as well. North of the subject site is a single-family home being used as a preschool. However, staff has held an inquiry meeting to discuss developing this property and some surrounding properties into a 3-parcel restaurant complex. West of the subject site is a business complex under the same ownership as the subject site. South of the subject site is the Fred Meyer Shopping Center, and east of the subject site is Columbia River Highway, and beyond that, Goodwill and the Candlelight Apartments. Subject site and all surrounding properties are zoned expanded commercial and are designated as commercial on the comprehensive plan map. Subject site is not located within the special flood hazard area, and there are no wetlands or steep slopes on the site. Requested approval. Scappoose Development Code specifies that an applicant may request approval of a modification to existing development by providing a copy of the proposed modified site development plan and providing a written rationale for the changes. If certain triggers are hit, however, the applicant must submit a new site development review application and the Planning Commission must approve the application. In this case tonight, the triggers were number 1, a change that requires additional on-site parking in accordance with Chapter 17.106. 2, a change in use as defined by the Uniform Building Code. 3, an increase in traffic to and from the site, and the increase can be expected to exceed 50 vehicles per day. And 4, a change in land use. The applicant proposes a change in land use from general retail sales for the previous Sears Hometown Store to a gym and yoga studio use. The footprint of the building will not change. This will change the occupancy of the building according to the Uniform Building Code from an M mercantile use to an A3 assembly use. Based on the new proposed use as a gym and yoga studio, the transportation analysis letter indicates that the new use could generate up to 88 additional weekday trips. Based on the new proposed use, an additional 6 parking spaces are required. These changes constitute a major modification to existing development, and the Planning Commission is the approval authority. Right-of-way public improvements. Property has frontage on Columbia River Highway. However, there is no direct access from Columbia River Highway to the subject site. Instead, its primary access is via an easement and drive aisle that is to the south of the property and owned by Fred Meyer Stores Incorporated. No street improvements will be required as part of this development, and any sidewalks along the frontage of the property that are cracked, lifted, or may create a tripping hazard will be required to be replaced by the applicant. Vehicular access and off-street parking. The site currently provides 2 vehicular access points from the Fred Meyer parking lot access drive to the south of the property and 1 access point from the business complex to the west of the property. The applicant is not proposing to create or remove any access points. Scappoose Development Code requires 1 parking space per 300 square feet of gross floor area for indoor participant sports and recreation, as well as 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area for wholesaling, storage, and distribution. Based on the 9,685 square feet of floor area for indoor participant sports and recreation, and the 2,783 square feet of floor area for wholesaling, storage, and distribution, the applicant must provide 36 parking spaces. The applicant proposes to provide these 36 parking spaces, none of which are compact spaces, and 2 of which are ADA accessible spaces. Additionally, 11 bicycle parking spaces are depicted on the parking plan, which exceeds the amount required by the Scappoose Development Code. Traffic generation. The applicant submitted a transportation analysis letter on file as Exhibit 4, which provided a few different trip scenarios. The trip generation calculations show that the proposed project at most is projected to generate a net increase of 7 a.m. peak hour trips, 4 p.m. peak hour trips, and 88 average weekday trips. Transportation analysis letter provided a safety and operational evaluation as required. Trip generation, site distance, crash data, on-site circulation and connectivity, and pedestrian and bicycle facilities were also evaluated. As stated in the transportation analysis letter, the proposed development is expected to have a minimal impact on all study intersections. Lancaster Mobley, who put together the letter, does recommend one measure of mitigation, and that is to remove or properly maintain any obstructing hedges or foliage along the south side of the site to allow for at least the minimum required stopping site distances at the 2 site accesses along the parking lot drive aisle, which has been included in the recommended conditions of approval. Landscaping, screening, and street trees. The applicant submitted a landscaping plan on file as Exhibit 3G, which depicts the provision of trees, shrubs, and ground cover throughout the subject site. Street trees will be required along Columbia River Highway, meeting the requirements in Scappoose Development Code, Chapter 17.104, street trees. The applicant proposes to plant 2 street trees in total as seen on the landscaping plan. Property to the north contains a single-family home being used as a preschool. The applicant has proposed to provide buffering and screening along the northern property line adjacent to the single-family home between the existing parking lot and the property line. The applicant proposes a 5-foot cedar screening fence along with trees, shrubs, and ground cover as seen on the landscaping plan. Lighting. The applicant submitted an exterior lighting plan on file as Exhibit 3J, which depicts the location of exterior lighting throughout the site. Public and private agencies. City of Scappoose City Manager, Police Chief, Public Works Director, Columbia County Building Official, Scappoose Rural Fire Protection District, Columbia River PUD, and the Oregon Department of Transportation have been provided an opportunity to review the proposal. City of Scappoose Police Chief, Public Works Director, and the Columbia River PUD stated that they had no objection to this application's approval as submitted and did not provide further comment. Building official provided a referral comment on file as Exhibit 5, stating that the property owner will need to obtain a change of occupancy permit and provide plans with code analysis. This requirement is included in the recommended conditions of approval. Scappoose Rural Fire Protection District provided a comment, which is on file as Exhibit 6, which cited the fire codes that must be met for this change of use. Fire District's comments are included in the recommended conditions of approval. The Oregon Department of Transportation was provided the opportunity to comment, but did not respond to staff's referral. Notice of the application was mailed to property owners within 200 feet of the subject site on April 13th, 2023. As of the date of this hearing, there have been no comments made by the nearby property owners entitled to notice. Moving to the findings of fact, staff's findings related to Scappoose Municipal Code, Chapter 12.10, visual clearance areas can be found on pages 22 through 24. Scappoose Development Code, Chapter 17.68, expanded commercial, pages 24 through 25. Chapter 17.100, landscaping, screening, and fencing, pages 25 through 29. Chapter 17.104, street trees, pages 29 through 30. Chapter 17.106, off-street parking and loading requirements, pages 30 through 41. Chapter 17.120, site development review, pages 41 through 46. Chapter 17.154, street and utility improvement standards, pages 46 through 51. And Chapter 17.164, procedures for decision-making, limited land use decisions, page 51. Based on the findings of fact and the materials submitted by the applicant, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve site development review 1-23, subject to the conditions of approval listed on pages 51 through 54. For this application, staff is recommending 18 conditions of approval with a mix of standard conditions that we recommend for all site development review proposals and a few related to this site and development in particular. That concludes staff's presentation of our observations, finding, and recommendation. This time I can take any questions if you would like to ask any of staff before we hear from the applicant.
Anybody have any questions for staff? Okay. And the applicant, please.
Present, I'm just here to answer.
Pretty thorough. Everything, is. Have any questions?
I have one question. Since there's a adjacent business, I was wondering how the parking spots are going to be basically reserved for them, since it could be tempting to use those parking spots if they're not signed or something.
Right, so the 5 spots are tax preparation business are directly in front of that building. So there, there is a possibility that people goes, Jim is normally going to see its peak hours off what the tax have though, so.
Thank you.
What are the operating hours? Is it a 24-hour operation?
Perhaps Ryan could answer that.
The owner
Yes,
is,
so thank you all for this meeting. Operating hours are 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
9:30?
Yes.
Could you bring the microphone a little closer?
sure.
Thank you, Ryan.
Oh. Sorry, I'm Brett Carr with Lower Columbia Engineering.
My mom did tax preparation for 20 years. So there will be 2 months a year that there will be some conflict there. So you probably want to consider how to, signage somehow to manage that. Because for the most part, you're correct, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if we'll have discussion with the neighboring business there, and if necessary, we will contract with the tow company and indicate the spots that are specific to peak performance, just to ensure that those aren't taken for non-peak performance related business.
Is there any concerns about the conditions of approval that the city has added?
Oh, no, it's like generally good stuff.
We had time in this situation where they were able to review the conditions ahead of time.
I understand is they hope to have this operation sometime in the summer, maybe.
I believe, yeah, that's what I heard. Beginning of June was the target.
Guess I have any other questions that might should be directed to staff. But there was reference to the fact that there might be another project on the other side.
Yeah,
The things that require for fencing and things like that change if they were there as opposed to a
it would.
residential.
Correct. If it was commercial already in a commercial use to the north, then the buffering and screening would not be required.
Right.
But we don't know if it's moving forward. We just wanted to document that that was something that we had, we've already held that inquiry meeting earlier this year. But the property is still, has not changed hands yet, to my knowledge.
One other question, and this is probably not something you're expecting to hear. But someday down in the future, we might have to consider this. There are now parking areas that are becoming charging stations. Someone asked to have a charging station or someone offered to put a charging station. Would that change the availability as far as the parking?
It's a great question. It's still a parking spot, just like we count our ADA spots as parking spots. So to my knowledge, I don't know that it would change the count per se. But I'm not sure exactly, like in other words, in the future, if they wanted to switch out some of the stalls. Is that your question? Yeah, wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't think our code directly addresses it yet, but I think it is likely something that we will address
I see.
as part of the
Probably
50-year
weren't
plan.
expecting that, so.
Good point, though.
Very likely to happen in the future.
Mhm. And I don't think a retail or a gym is gonna have that because people aren't there for 4 hours for something to charge, but still, it
I
is.
thought they'd be there all day long.
Not my experience of having gone to a gym. All right, any further questions for the applicant? Thank you. All right, any staff response?
I think this one's pretty straightforward. We've seen them working inside the building here for the last little while, trying to get some of the tenant improvements in place. So I don't have any further comments unless there are additional questions.
No, I'll wait for the hearing to. Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to have a condition of approval that states something about the parking issue that gives staff the ability to, you know, if there's complaints about parking from the adjacent neighbor, it gives staff some standing in getting that resolved.
I would recommend that we don't do that only because the code does have provisions for shared parking if they needed to do that. However, they are meeting their requirements on site. They have all parking spaces they need on site. So I would, because they are meeting it according to the code, I would prefer to leave that to the applicant to deal with on a personal matter or a private matter.
That's fine with me.
Thank you.
Right.
You see the people that are there leaving and exiting. A lot of them won't just get back onto Highway 30, but some will take the back exit through the Fred Meyer parking lot onto Old Portland Road or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It is under the same ownership. We have recommended that they acquire a cross-access easement. But again, they do have drive aisles on the site on this particular legal lot, out onto where there is a legal access easement on the south end, Fred Meyer's drive aisle. So they do have 2 access points on their site, and legal access to the highway. We've made that recommendation, but it would be up to them to follow up on that.
Okay. Well,
All right. If there's no further questions, then we'll move on to we're going to close the hearing and move to consideration of the matter by the commission. Anybody have any further comments? Okay.
said it's pretty simple. Hard to figure out.
I think staff did a great job, and the applicant, you hit everything that needed to get hit. Then I'd entertain a motion.
Entertain a motion. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Nobody else is. Make a motion that, Brian Marsh's application for approval of a site development review, SRD, SDR 123, to allow for the renovation and the change of use of an existing building previously the Sears Home Town Store and William Putters, as well as improvements of various site amenities, that the application is put into a gym and yoga studio. Location 51581 River Highway, northwest of Havoc Drive at River Highway intersection. And as described by the Columbia County SAR map 21-B001700. Approve it.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve SDR 1-23 as presented from staff. Is there any further discussion? Right? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Well, that's that. Thank you very much for being here. All right, then we're on to item 5.2, the meeting start time discussion.
Thank you. So, probably recall there was a request last fall from Commissioner Jacobs to consider changing the meeting start time for planning commission meetings. I believe she was interested in potentially discussing a 6 o'clock start time. She is not here this evening, obviously, so it would be up to the commission if you want to table that until she is back, or if you just want to vote we have a quorum, you can vote on that tonight if you want. But I will leave that up to you for discussion.
I personally think if she's not here, we should afford her the opportunity to speak on what he wanted to see. So I would be in favor of tabling this until the next meeting.
I do have concerns about earlier time because I don't know, some folks work in Portland and trying to get home in time. That's the only thing I would be concerned
Yeah.
about.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, I'm retired, so it doesn't make any difference.
Mhm.
But I'm just thinking about some folks may, it might be difficult for them to get back here in time.
Yep. And so when we put the agenda together, we didn't know that she wouldn't be here. Otherwise, we would probably have just left it off. So that's why I just wanted you to have a conversation and
I think got what we need for now.
Okay.
Item 5.3, team agreement.
so similar to what I just said, we don't have all members here tonight. We can go ahead and adopt tonight if you wanted to. And I did want to talk through some changes, or you could again decide to table if you wanted to and try and wait for a full house. I don't want to push it out forever, but it is important. The team agreement is something that the city council and all commissions, standing commissions, do adopt. We try and do that every year, although I did notice we did not do that last year with the planning commission. So the team agreement language that each committee adopts is very similar. The planning commission team agreement is most similar to the city council's team agreement, actually. And then the version before you tonight that I placed before you is slightly different than the one that was in your packet. So I just want to tell you what was different. The one in your packet had, let me get to that. It's on the back page. It had a number 14 under the agreements for conducting planning commission meetings and business. That one said speak with one voice. One's always been slightly confusing for staff and for the commission because it was a little vague on what that, intended meaning was. I mean, it's really about just, it kind of ties in with number 10, agree to be diplomatic about disagreement. Do not try to polarize other commissioners. It's also somewhat similar to number 15, support the decision of a majority of the planning commission members after a decision has been made. So I felt like since it's more or less covered in intent in other items here, I struck that out. I also noticed when comparing it to the council team agreement that they don't have that language in there either. Presumably it's been just fixed over the years. So I took that out. I took number 15 and placed it under individual planning commission member conduct agreements. I felt like it fit better there because it's really speaking to what an individual member is agreeing to. And then there was one other item added under individual planning commission member conduct agreements, which was the attend trainings that are offered by the city for the success and betterment of the commission. We like to make sure that you're getting training each year, and so I thought it was appropriate to add that. Aside from that, everything else in here again is the same language as you've seen in previous years, and again is very similar to what the other committees adopt.
I think, you speak with one voice came from the fact that meetings and stuff like this, it wasn't so much us as the fact that usually an attorney or someone would be there talking about appeals to LUBA, that if we spoke with one, wasted less chance of.
Oh, curious. Okay.
So I think that's why it's probably
Mm.
added somewhat.
Okay.
No ad-libbing around the decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Want to add it back in, Bill?
I'd say add it back. Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. You always have the history.
Yeah.
I should have just asked you.
I'm just being wordsmith here.
Yeah.
I would say respect the decision made by the planning commission members.
Okay, sure. I
Yes.
like that. Yeah, because you can have an individual.
So
Yeah,
what
you know.
number are you talking about?
The last item 5 under the individuals,
Okay.
just said, you're not required to support the decision, but you are
Correct.
not allowed to badmouth it.
Respect. Okay, I like that. That's a good change.
And I'm going to suggest that since there is a change, why don't we wait to do
Yeah,
this until the next meeting when it's.
I think, yep, I think that makes sense.
Okay. Then we are on to calendar check. Okay, nothing that needs to be said for April events. Monday, May 1st, City Council and Planning Commission work session at 6. Master Plan, City Council meeting at 7. Wednesday, the 10th, there's a budget meeting at 5:30. Thursday, the 11th, a budget meeting if needed at 5:30. No Planning Commission on Thursday, the 11th.
And I just mentioned one other thing on the 11th. There's an EDC meeting on the 18th at noon that actually got moved to the 11th.
But
The EDC meeting that was scheduled for the 18th moved to the 11th.
okay. All right. Looks like the farmer's market is starting on Saturday, the 13th. All right. Monday, the 15th, City Council work session at 6, followed by City Council meeting at 7. Tuesday, the 16th, budget meeting at 5:30 if necessary. Nothing on the 18th.
I think Parks and Rec is
Parks and
still
Rec is six.
happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Parks and Rec meeting at 6 on Thursday, the 18th. Then Farmers Market again on Saturday. Then we do have a planning commission meeting scheduled for the 25th of May. Is that
Yes.
okay? 27th, Farmers Market. 29th, the city offices are closed for Memorial Day. And May 30, there's a 50-year stakeholder plan advisory committee meeting at 6. And that's the calendar. Are there any commissioner comments? Okay. Any staff comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you all a heads up. We have 3 of you with your terms expiring in July 2023. Scott Jensen, Bruce Shoemaker, and Bill Blank.